All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it has been a week, hasn't it? I hope y'all caught my episode that I dropped Friday night about the memo. We're going to be talking about the memo tonight. We thought we were going to talk about the State of the Union and, Bernie Sanders, sourpuss, and what's
Nancy
his name?
Pelosi chewing the cud.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi chewing her cud, and what's his name? Corey Brooks, and that murder face that he's got. But, well, that Nothing Burger memo dropped, and shoo, there was a whole lot of beef in that particular Nothing Burger. So, that's what we're doing tonight. Strap in. And here we go. No Russia and the memo. Phew, buddy. Now, I understand that. Let me just get this out of the way real quick. I understand we're not going to have as many viewers as usual because the Super Bowl's on, and you guys just haven't figured out yet that the Washington Generals are going to lose, and Lucy's going to pull the football. So y'all go watch. What's his face Sunshine as he runs out of fingers to put Super Bowl rings on. But we are going to talk about America. We're going to talk about American shit. And we're going to talk about a problem. Because, shoo, buddy, the memo is chock full, but let's be real. Before we dig into it, let's be real for a minute. Did we learn anything from the memo? Frankly, not much. The memo did not so much contain a lot of new information as it did confirm a great many suppositions and speculations based on, reason and evidence. And I mean, in a big way. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff around the memo and a lot of stuff that's kind of external to the Russia investigation and why this stuff is so important. Talk about the statement, "This is bigger than Watergate," is objectively and compellingly correct. That is in no way hyperbole, and we'll dig into that a little bit too. So this memo, at the end of the day, essentially what it is a signed statement by elected officials, by our representatives.
Nunes. Nunes.
Well, the entire House Intelligence Committee signed off to release it.
It was Devin Nunes who wrote it, though.
It's Devin Nunes that wrote it. But, yes, Nunes wrote it. But the House Intelligence Oversight Committee has signed off on its release, as has the president. And, amusingly, all this week, or all through the week, we had a bunch of bigwig Democrats coming out. Oh, there's nothing in there. There's nothing to see here. And then, of course, the FBI. We have grave concerns about the contents of this memo and believe that it therefore should not be released. Grave concerns, really. Grave concerns about the memo. Is that because your organization is named in criminal activity, in the engagement of criminal conspiracy, with compelling evidence to that point? So, Mr. Murderer has grave concerns about us checking out his firearm. Is that perhaps because he already knows that the bullet matches the grooves from the barrel?
There's one little minor thing that I need to correct you on. Before the memo was released, the Democrats were saying that it would be a constitutional crisis and would cause irreparable faith in our institutions and how badly it would damage the FBI and our intelligence agencies and so forth and so on.
And those are all reasonable statements. Those are all actually reasonably true statements.
However, it was only after the memo was released that the Democrats were like, it's not a big deal. It was a big deal before it was released. And then once it came out, oh, guys, come on, this isn't that big of a deal. So the first thing you have to ask is it a big deal? Or is it, it's not that big of a deal? Because...
Well, hold on a second. So your question, is it a big deal? That's a perfectly reasonable question. Is the memo a big deal? Is there a lot of information in it? Is it densely packed with amazing and horrifying criminal wrongdoings? Is the memo a big deal? Well, it's at least this is more impressive when the clicker works. Our technology has failed me. I was suddenly going to be incredibly funny.
What you're about to see came from a conversation that he and I had a few days ago when the memo first got released, that the tangled web in the memo reads like a synopsis of the plot to a Game of Thrones, that this character is tied to this character, is tied to this character, is tied to this character, is tied to this character. And I mean, and I just can't bend my arms anymore, but there's still more tied to this characters added on. Probably the biggest thing that came out of the memo was not just that many of our worst fears were confirmed, but that Donald Trump himself was not the target of the FISA court, not even a member of Donald Trump's family. Instead, it was a campaign aide named Carter Page. Now, you can spy on Carter Page and still spy on the Trump transition and on Donald Trump himself. If you wanted to spy on me, you wouldn't necessarily have to spy on me. You could spy on my wife. You could spy on my coworkers. You could spy on my children. And you would still gather intelligence about me as part of that process. We've talked about Carter Page before on this channel and how he is related to the Russia investigation. And apparently, what Carter Page did was get drunk in a bar and have a conversation with an Australian diplomat where he bragged that the Trump team had it on good authority that Russia had dirt on Hillary, and it was dirty dirt on Hillary. Yay! Oh, and this is our spider web.
It's this big a deal. It's such a big deal that when we put the information on the screen in a graphic so that you can attempt to assimilate all of it, it was a misunderstanding with the technology.
The technology misunderstood you.
It misunderstood me, as in this remote that was working when we tested it right before we went live suddenly had a dead battery. So, fresh battery, less problems. So yeah, it's this big a deal. Let's zoom that back in and just take this a chunk at a time. You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's do this.
I'm pretty sure I interrupted you in the middle of a thought, but that's okay because
okay because
we're about to get into the meat of this nothing burger.
A lot of thoughts right here.
Shoot, buddy. Now, individually, these statements are going to be statements of facts of which you are aware. We'll take just a second and check in on the comments section before we go past Mueller is investigating. Yep. And the fact of the matter is we cannot read the comments. So, we're going to come back to those in a minute.
But keep them coming. We'll be
fully prepared to be distracted. We'll be with you there. So, Mueller's investigating the Donald. Except, he's not, is he?
Well, he is now, but he wasn't the target of the FISA court.
Oh, yeah. Well, the fact of the matter has been that Trump has not yet even been investigated for any kind of criminal wrongdoing.
Nope. The original Russia investigation was strictly a counterintelligence investigation. The kind of thing that our government does all the time. So when you hear some Democrat hack or some CNN hack say, hey, there's been a legitimate Russia investigation happening for well over a year, almost 2 years. Yes, this is technically true, but it is the difference between, and I'm going to use these terms loosely, the difference between civil court and criminal court. And nobody, not Donald Trump, none of Donald Trump's family, nobody in Donald Trump's transition or campaign or anything has been investigated for any criminal activity. Look, why don't you just let it play one time? Oh, hey, look, now we can, well, you can see the comments.
Yeah, I can see the comments. They're hard. It's hard to read them from here. It's but yeah, I've got the comments where I can read them at least. What did we learn? Crooks are doing crime. Okay.
Yeah. This is, if they're not in the comments section, they don't know. They don't know what we're on about.
Yeah, I see Rod, Lindsay, and my lovely wife. Hey, baby. So,
just Carter Page, target. You know what you should do? You should just let it loop through one time, just so people can get the visual representation, just how much there is here.
Okay. Well, hold on tight and don't spill your beer. This is going to be a bit of a ride.
Yes, there are this many players, some of which didn't know about each other, some of which did know about each other, some of which knew the whole thing, some of which were just patsies in the conspiracy. But this is actually how complex the whole thing is. So the basic overview is we got to go back to the Steele dossier, or rather the Pissgate memo. The thing that CNN knew about, the thing that Fox News knew about, the thing that ABC News knew about, and they never released the memo because they knew there was too much in the Steele dossier that was unverified. It was salacious. Maybe a few small details here and there were correct, but on the whole, most of the Steele dossier was probably false simply because they couldn't verify it. So, John McCain, good old John McCain, he flew an aide out, I believe it was either to London or Moscow, to actually pick up a copy of the dossier. This aide brings it back and gives the Pissgate dossier to BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed publishes the Steele dossier. And now that BuzzFeed has published the Steele dossier, it gave license to CNN and other channels to begin reporting it as news. They did it under the auspices of Pissgate, yeah, haha. They did it under the auspices of, well, BuzzFeed has reported it, so now we're just reporting what BuzzFeed is reporting. And if you draw your own conclusions from there, well, whoops, you know, this is CNN, as James Earl Jones says.
So, quick shout out, Sergeant Major's in the audience. Hey, Dad. Ross called me a little while ago, and I think he's going to watch. He said he was going to try to watch the show. I don't see him yet, so he might be trying to figure out his technology. But we'll keep an eyeball out for him. So my Russia and the memo. Now let's see. So we know we got Mueller investigating Trump. Finally, after a year with no evidence. Oh, what's the evidence that he's using to investigate Trump?
The Pissgate dossier.
The Pissgate dossier.
And the drunken conversation with Carter Page happened.
What happened with the Pissgate dossier? Oh, that's right. No, the drunken conversation with was with Papadopoulos, not Carter Page. It was
Carter Page. I promise you. Papadopoulos was the one that wanted to go to Russia because Russian contacts had told him that they had dirt on Hillary, and the Russian campaign actually squashed the idea. The Trump campaign actually squashed the idea. So This memo, the memo that we're talking about, in reference to the Steele dossier, alleges that once this dossier had been created by Christopher Steele is an ex-British spook, and in order to get things signed off on, every FISA application has got to go through multiple checkpoints and Senate Intelligence Committees, and or the head of the FBI, and or the head of the Department of Justice. And this memo names names. Every 90 days, a FISA application has to be reapplied for. So it has to go through all these same checkpoints again. The first name...
And this memo names big names.
Like Rod Rosenstein.
So his signature went on one. But more importantly, James Comey, Mr. There's No There, Mr. Hillary didn't do nothing. Mr. Intense. Oh, yeah. He had to have signed off on at least 3 of them. Probably 4. Personally. So, not only is he clearly in bed with Hillary, but he is clearly a major orchestrating force in the entire fabricated Russian investigation. That's a big deal, because that means he didn't just commit a little bit of perjury. He committed all the perjury. In fact, the only true thing he appears to have said during his several statements before the before the House Oversight Committee is the rapid back and forth with Trey Gowdy, where Trey Gowdy hit him with, well, Hillary said she only had one device. Was that true? No, she had more than one device. Hillary said they didn't destroy any devices. Is that true? No, she destroyed the devices. Hillary said she turned over, and Gowdy just hit him point by point by point. Hillary made this statement. Was that a true statement? No, that statement is not true. Yes, dear Deputy Attorney General, that's correct. So, big names.
Like
Rod Rosenstein. And James Comey.
Oh,
what do you know? And Andrew McCabe.
Remember the name Andrew McCabe? It's gonna come back around later.
Oh my God. And Sally Yates. And I hope y'all are recognizing these acronyms next to their names. I mean, you got Daddy Deputy Durfee, Director of the FBI, Deputy Director of the FBI McCabe. You've got former Director of the FBI Comey, Deputy Attorney General. And then, of course, Donna Buente, which I kept wanting to spell with a U because it just seems like Buente should be spelled with a U. That looks more like Buente. But, we might have corrected somebody else's Spanish. Now, let's come back to Isikoff in a minute. Christopher Steele. This guy is an ex-British intelligence officer, intelligence agent. And you want to talk about some convoluted, just madness. This shit. So Steele got in trouble for meeting with Isikoff. And when Steele met with Isikoff, he told him a bunch of stuff about the Pissgate memo, which he later used. So later, the FBI used this Yahoo News article as supporting evidence to buttress the significance of the Steele dossier. And it gets better. Steele used the Yahoo article as a primary source, so he used himself as a source retroactively for the memo. He cites the Yahoo article where he was interviewed about the memo and disclosed information that was classified that he was not allowed to disclose to that article, and then referenced the article to generate the memo.
When they went to the FISA court with this, they explained to the FISA court, we've got a paid informant, and that paid informant was Christopher Steele. And we have these news reports that are coming out that also talk about the things that are in this dossier. What nobody told the FISA court, and it does appear that the judges at the FISA court were not complicit in this. It does appear that the judges were lied to. There could be more information that comes out that contradicts it. But at the moment, it looks like when these FISA applications were submitted, not only did they know that they were using circular reporting, which is like money laundering only with language or information, but they...
And lies!
And lies. They failed to mention that their source was hyper-partisan, and that this same FBI informant had ties to the Yahoo article, had ties to Fusion GPS, and all of the other stuff. And yeah, Chris Steele revealed that he was an FBI informant, which is a thing that you don't do at all. So his credibility and everything should have been shot. Was any of this presented to the FISA courts? No. Instead, what was presented to the FISA court is we've got a spooky that's telling us something. We've got news reports that are matching up with what the spooky is telling us. And you've got to give us this application, Judge. This could be big. Because remember, the FISA court is there to catch terrorists. It's there to spy on the worst of the worst of the worst. So they were accusing, in this case, Carter Page of either being the worst of the worst of the worst or working with the worst of the worst of the worst. With us so far? I hope so.
I hope you're keeping up. Because it's a lot. I know. Now, Christopher Steele has now been fired from the FBI, specifically over. I think this is the next one. All right, we'll get back to Hillary. Hillary's a problem. Barry's a problem. McCain's a problem. All three of them need to go to jail. We'll get back to that. Uranium one's a big deal. Clinton emails. Comey testimony. Damn it. Something fell out of order. There we go. Okay. So this, David Korn, is the reporter for Mother Jones.
Yep.
That wrote the article where Christopher Steele disclosed his relationship with the FBI, and it was that got him fired. That once he disclosed to Mother Jones, and it got reported and printed and published, that he was actively involved with the FBI, getting paid by the FBI to gain access to U.S. national security secrets, which he was then leaking to the press for profit. And this serial secrets leaker, Christopher Steele, was having meetings with Fusion GPS, the Hillary Clinton campaign, and Perkins Coie, which is the Clinton campaign's law firm.
Mm-hmm.
It's unclear in the memo who exactly paid him. It reads like the Clinton campaign and Fusion GPS paid him through Perkins Coie as a cutout. But essentially, between those three entities, Christopher Steele was paid on top of his regular the regular pay that he was getting from the FBI as an informant. He got paid $160,000, where he was clearly leaking classified information. And then, like I said, he revealed his relationship with the FBI to Mother Jones and was fired for that. So this guy, I mean, you want to talk about belongeth in the jail. How's about belongeth underneath it? Are we up to stroke yet? Do we want to move past stroke and come back to everything else in a minute? No.
No, because this is where it gets interesting. Because a few weeks ago on the show, we talked about some text messages that had some really, really, really spooky stuff in them. Peter Strzok was the guy that was having the affair with Lisa Page. And Lisa Page was an attorney. And Peter Strzok works in the counterintelligence division for the FBI. Now, at the beginning of all this, I stressed that there was always, quote-unquote, a legitimate Russia investigation.
Real quick, Lisa Page is an attorney for who?
The Department of the Attorney General, or an attorney for the... That's right. Okay. Sorry.
So there's another connection between the FBI and the DOJ, where there's some shady shit going on.
Now, Strzok and Page were the ones that were having an affair, and their text messages were the ones that mysteriously disappeared and reappeared, and they were having very, very, very partisan text messages about how much they hated Trump, and it was really unclear as to whether or not they liked Hillary or if they feared Hillary. But what was clear is that they hated Trump and they preferred Hillary. They have one particular text message thread in particular. I'm just going to use the word particular over and over again because I'm on a roll, people. Anyhow, they had one text message thread in particular where they said, hey, I'd really like to believe the scenario that you laid out in Andy's office, but I don't know, we need some kind of insurance policy just in case Hillary does not win. Now, when I said...
an insurance policy?
Yeah, as in just in case?
Like, Marussia.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Now, remember when I said, remember the name Andrew McCabe? They had a conversation in Andy's office. And this conversation, to go into a little more detail, just so you understand, Lisa Page lays out what the polling says. I mean, the woman is an attorney. We can assume that she possesses a certain degree of intelligence. So she sat down and she said, look, here's the deal. Hillary Clinton is going to have this, and this locked up. Trump would literally have to run the table on everything else that was left in order to beat her. And just real quick, Trump ran the table, didn't he? To which Strzok's reply was
shit, did somebody leave the 8 ball on the break?
I got that.
So that was when Strzok replied to her, well, I'd really like to believe the scenario you laid out, but we need an insurance policy just in case. And this insurance policy was, we're going to create so many problems for Trump, we're going to make it look like he colluded and committed treason and all these other things. And most people, if you brought the full weight of the federal government down on them, they would crumble. It happened to Michael Flynn. It got to the point to where his children, and this is something that happened as a result of this investigation, were getting stressed out and getting into bad health. His entire family is broke. They had millions of dollars, and now they don't. Turns out Trump wasn't somebody that was going to bend or break that easily, though. So, do we have Lisa Page up there anywhere just so we can see where she fits in?
So, we'll get back to Nellie Orr, and we got her in here somewhere. She was in here. I remember typing her name. There she is.
She's an FBI attorney, not a DOJ attorney.
Right.
Well, I guess it makes sense since they had the conversation in the deputy director of the FBI's office.
Okay, so we've made one mistake so far. I'm okay with that.
But that's how complicated this conspiracy is.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with. I mean, if, like I said earlier, if y'all watched the bluff that I did on this Friday night, I got a lot of uhs and ums in there because this shit's hard to keep up with. And I was just reading through my notes on the memo. I didn't have I didn't have this wonderful graphic built yet. We did this last night, or this morning.
Yesterday morning.
Yesterday morning. Anyway, so how does this tie in with Uranium One and the Hillary Clinton emails? I haven't heard anybody talking about this yet, but this shit's important. Okay, so Hillary is not mentioned in the memos. But it was the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee that funded Fusion GPS, Christopher Steele, and Perkins Coie to essentially commit espionage against this country, generate fallacious news articles, which were then used to create a ridiculous fabricated dossier. And then, circularly, the same articles were used to buttress as evidence the dossier in order to illegally obtain warrants to conduct wiretaps on people close to a presidential candidate during a presidential campaign. All this is happening at the same time as the email scandal. And then, of course, we want to go back and talk about Uranium One a little bit. So what do the Uranium One, the email scandal, and the Marussia investigation have to do with one another?
The same people were running
it's
the FBI.
It's all the same people.
And the DOJ.
So if we find a body in your trunk, you're a murderer. If we find another body in your trunk later, you're a murderer. You've killed 2 people. But number 3 makes you a serial killer. 3 is the minimum number it takes to define a pattern. So what we have here is these same people, a lot of these people, specifically Hillary, and at a minimum, Mueller, Rosenstein, and Comey. And I suspect we'd find a lot more of these people's fingerprints in their earlier careers. But what we have is essentially a cabal of conspiracy to commit sedition and activity against the American interests. Now, I'm using these words very carefully. Sedition. Activity against U.S. interests. I am not calling treason here, except in the case of Hillary, specifically Hillary and only Hillary, on her email situation, because she signed the same non-disclosure agreement that the rest of us signed. Well, I mean, you know who you are. Some of us. And y'all know who you are. She signed the non-disclosure agreement, and it was not exactly unclear as to the nature of the penalty for disclosure, which I might add is merciful and generous, because it does not guarantee that you will be executed for committing treason, although it should. Now, so I am not suggesting that the rest of these people are traitors. Sedition, various crimes, various and sundry crimes, most of which appear to include obstruction of justice, suppression of evidence, significant amounts of money laundering, and probably a lot of the mishandling of classified information. Yes, thank you, Sergeant Major. Lisa Page and Carter Page are not related. Probably.
They're not related. They're not, but good question.
But the memo confirming so many prior suspicions functionally confirms that what we're looking at is a pattern of sedition and criminality committed by a particular group of people over the last at least 15 years, much more likely decades. What this memo essentially lists is it names the Clinton crime cabal. Too late. It's too late to keep calling it the Clinton crime family. You know, we've been hearing Clinton crime family, Clinton crime family, Clinton crime family. We've been hearing that cycle through the news for a long time, and it's largely always been speculation. That, I mean, there has been evidence, but there's never been anything actually nailed down. Never any charges brought over the Clintons laundering money through the Clinton charity organization and receiving foreign contributions from our enemies.
How much of that Haiti money actually went to Haiti?
I was about to hit Haiti. But this memo calls out a large chunk of the Clinton crime organization. Well, no, it calls out a chunk of the Clinton crime. Oh, yeah, it is a large chunk. It may not be most. I'm almost certain it's not all. But that's where we are right now.
But some major players got tapped.
Definitely.
And the other thing that we've got to point out is that Rosenstein actually said in Senate testimony just a few months ago that were it not for the Steele dossier, they would not have even sought the FISA warrant in the first place. Because the original FISA warrant, way back in early 2016, was denied. There wasn't enough evidence to justify basically breaking an American's constitutional right to not be spied on by the government.
Oh, you mean the Fourth Amendment that says an American is guaranteed to be secure in his person's properties and papers from unreasonable search and seizure without the duly issued warrant of a judge?
Why, in fact, that's exactly to what I'm referring to. So when they went back to the FISA court the second time to get the FISA warrant,
it's hard to keep up with, isn't
it? Now they had the Pissgate memo as part of their evidence. And as Chris said, they buttressed the importance of the Pissgate memo with the fact that news media sources were beginning to report it. But they knew the memo was unverified. They knew their source hated Trump. They knew their source had been leaking things to the press, all of which should have mined not only the credibility of the documentation that he produced, but the source himself. And Rosenstein testified in front of the Senate, were it not for the Pissgate memo, we would not have gone for the FISA application the second time around, which means they knew it was all bullshit when they moved forward. And they didn't exactly lie to these FISA judges in so much as they picked the right 80% of truth to present to these FISA judges.
Correct. In fact, where the lie really happens is that they omitted available information. And that's a big part of it, is the requirement for the FISA warrant is that all available information related to the request be included in the application. Things that they omitted were mostly things about how things about the relationship that Christopher Steele had with the news articles that were used to generate the memo and then later used as supporting evidence, which is just mind-blowing. You cannot use yourself as a primary source. You are, by definition, if you are producing a report or any kind of a paper, or any kind of an analysis, you are, by definition, not a primary source. You can be somebody else's primary source once you've generated your report. But you can't be the guy that you ask the questions of. If you already know your shit, you don't have to ask you.
And they left out the most important thing of all about the Steele dossier, that it was opposition research, that what they were trying to do was investigate the Republican candidate for president based on what the Democrat candidate for president had said about them. And you want to talk about third world country, phony plastic banana, rock and roll, good time, dictator, you want to know what happens in shithole countries? You investigate.
This happens in shithole countries.
You investigate the opposite party based on he said, she said BS. And that's exactly what this was. If that FISA judge had known for a second that what was being brought to him was Oppo research, he'd have thrown the whole thing out on the spot. But they didn't mention that, did they?
Nope. Somehow that little tidbit got omitted. Somehow.
Did.
Omitted. Okay.
Just run through that one more time, dude. Just because it really is. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. And that's exactly what this was. It was all a big lie and deception, because you could make the argument that everybody believed Hillary was going to be president and they didn't want to piss her off, but because apparently being on Hillary's bad side is the worst bad side of any person to be on. Or you could make the argument that they hated Trump so very much that they were blinded to everything else. If you go through and you read the memo for yourself, you realize that there were some people here that actively hated Donald Trump, just couldn't stand him. They thought that they thought of him as such a reprehensible character. Why, he was almost bad enough to sexually harass interns in the Oval Office that were 30 years younger than him. Oh wait, that was Bill.
You might want to put some ice on that. So what have we really learned about the Democrat Party from this memorandum? Well, let's see. Hail Hydra.
Oh, well played. Well played. We've also learned that the deep state, the thing that has been referred to by many on the right and has been scoffed at by many on the left, is a real thing, and it exists. Chuck Schumer said several months ago that Donald Trump needed to be careful taking pot shots at the intelligence community, because those guys can get you in ways that nobody else can. Is this what Chuck Schumer was referring to?
And hey, I won't lie, he's not wrong.
No, Rod, they haven't denied any of it. We're actually going to circle back around to that as part of our summary. The other thing that I want to point out is something that Ron Paul said years and years and years ago about the Patriot Act. Anytime you pass legislation out of fear, whenever somebody comes along and says, we've got to do it for the children, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not for the kids. It is not for the kids. Nope. And we were obviously terrified at that point in time. We kind of had seen the Twin Towers fall down, and we'd seen the entire world economy contract. It's the only time in my life, I live near the Atlanta airport. It's the only time in my life I haven't seen a single plane in the sky. It was spooky, and we were afraid, and we passed the Patriot Act. And Ron Paul said that you would be giving bad actors within the federal government the ability to abuse their fellow Americans if we pass the Patriot Act. And it looks like Ron Paul was right. Now, I would love to just tag what Rod said there, since we're coming to our wrap up.
And we are about to wrap up. That's correct, Rod. No one has denied anything.
There's more to the story. The memo doesn't paint the complete picture. Okay, so...
And okay, we've got you in the room with the gun over the body. That's not the whole story? Did you also rape and rob her first?
Yeah.
I mean, what can you possibly add to your list of crimes? There is no justification for any of these crimes. There is absolutely no way that you can justify these crimes.
Even if the rest of the story is, well, hold on, wait a minute, there's some legitimate evidence against the Trump campaign as well. Well, okay.
Which there's not.
Well, let's just assume that, just for a second, just for the sake of logical argument.
Yes, let's pretend for just a moment that the fucking sieve that is the Democrat National Committee has managed not to leak the most valuable information that they could possibly have put in the press in their own favor. Let's go ahead and just strap that tinfoil fucking fantasy to our cocks and see how far we can roll with it. Proceed.
If there is actual legitimate evidence, if there is, quote unquote, another side to the story that changes the color and the narrative and whatnot, why did they have to include the Steele dossier in any part of the original FISA application? Why did it have to be part of the 90-day extensions that happened to the FISA application? Because a FISA warrant is so super spooky, secret, and all these things, it's not like a regular warrant. Once you have a warrant for something as a civilian police officer, there are reasonable limitations to what you can do with it. But that warrant allows you to investigate certain things for as long as you need to investigate them for. FISA warrants are different. Every 90 days, they come up for review and can be denied at the 90-day point. The FISA warrant on the Trump campaign, and Carter Page specifically, came up for 3 separate reviews, which means this thing went on for a year, okay? Came up 3 separate times, and each of those 3 times, it was renewed instead of denied. And the main reason it was renewed was, all of this salacious information in the Steele dossier, and Trump is just such a reprobate, and his character is so reprehensible that we just can't let this go. And even after Steele was fired by the FBI for being way too good of an informant, apparently, none of that was mentioned. So, no, nothing was denied. Nothing was denied. So, I'm going to ask the question. I'd be kind of interested in Chris's response. I'd be kind of interested in the audience's response. Is this the end of the Patriot Act?
I hope so. I do.
Because I think it's pretty clear we can't trust these people with this kind of power.
Trump would sign it. Trump would sign the repeal of the Patriot Act. I don't know if it makes it to his desk.
How many other people go down?
I don't know.
It's hard to give up the power to spy.
You ain't just whistling Dixie.
Yeah, I said that just for you, sugar.
So, I think, yes, absolutely, Sergeant Major, we need to clean house in the FBI. I'm going to go ahead and pop the comments back up here for a minute. Yeah, I'm gonna be adjusting that so that we can read that a little easier for next week.
Well, we don't always have a big Hail Hydra graphic to put
We
up.
don't, but let me ask you guys, what do you, this is the first time we've done this, this format with a big graph behind us. I think we're clipping a little bit, if I'm reading my audio levels right, so I need to adjust my gain and fix that for you. What do you guys think of the big presentation layout and everything? I think we're going to be doing a lot more like this, and as as we get the film.academy site spun up and start doing film reviews, it's going to look like this. It'll be us on the couch, and we'll have the movie on the thing behind us here. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. I think we're going to put a bow on this one, though. That's been a pretty big mess to talk about. So it's hard to ignore the Marussia.
Yeah.
So just to put this in a little more perspective, this is my final thought on the matter. This memorandum exposes extraordinary graft and corruption at the highest levels of our government, having occurred throughout the Obama administration, apparently entailing a cabal of malicious actors who have been engaged in some very serious high crimes and misdemeanors, even before all the Marussia stuff. We have now pretty compelling evidence to link these actors together, and that they have essentially been lying and cheating and stealing from the American people for decades as part of the apparently Clinton-led, and who knows, maybe George Soros is the head of the snake. But
that's what Glenn Beck thinks.
It wouldn't surprise me. I might strap on my tinfoil hat later and watch a little Glenn Beck and a little Alex Jones and see what they have to say.
He calls him the spooky dude.
They're just, those two guys are just crazy enough to be deeply entertaining. They make me laugh. But this memo exposes some very serious corruption at the highest levels of government, all of which continued throughout the Barack Obama administration, and which is largely still in place today. Yes, we need to clean house. Absolutely. The fact that Donald Trump won the presidency is a miracle.
Yeah, it is. That's the right word for it.
We have not yet seen compelling evidence that the Clinton campaign actively attempted to sabotage or steal the election from Donald Trump. But we have seen very compelling evidence that the Clinton campaign rigged the primary to steal it from Bernie Sanders.
It was redistributed.
So after Hillary redistributed Bernie's votes into her pocket, Bernie cupped and took the shill money and went straight on to the Clinton payroll. I had another thought that I wanted to share, and I got distracted for a minute. Maybe my chart will remind me what I was going to say. Oh, damn! I may have lost my final thought.
Yeah, well, I don't have it.
That's really frustrating.
It didn't come this way.
Okay. Well then, I think we're done then, guys. It's been great. Thanks for coming out. We will see you next week. If you're new, well, there's nobody new in the live audience. So if you're catching me later tonight or further on down the road, and you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe. We need you. We love you. See you next week, and until then, remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.